feeling between our two countries very strongly. Obviously been a very successful trip, a good chance for Premier Tangalangi and myself to talk about how we want to move things going forward, have some ambition, some aspiration for Niue and also our relationship. Importantly, as you will see shortly, we've now completed the resurfacing of the runway here, which gives Niue a fantastic tourism asset. Fenced, 24/7 lights, wonderful repavement. We've got a number of X-ray equipments in the new terminal that's actually enabling good border security, and that gives a platform, therefore, for restoring and all that's actually enabling good border security, and that gives a platform, therefore, for restoring and enhancing actually the growth of tourism in Niue as a result as well. And then, as you saw, our announcement today of almost $21 million to help Niue within an 18-month period move very quickly through to having 80% renewable energy and electricity, which is, again, another platform for further growth and prosperity in the future. So with that, happy to take your questions.
Yeah, just on that 80% renewable goal and the 20 million, can you be a bit more specific about what the money is going to in terms of which projects and which renewable energy sources? Yeah,
so it'll be solar, and essentially the contracts and the process will get kicked off in July. We believe that construction will start early in the first quarter of next year, and the plant will be commissioned towards the end of next year. So, in a relatively short period of time, the ability to be able to build a good solar farm and actually be able to have it hooked up, the relative bits that we need to make sure that a strong network's in place is really important. But again, this is a country that's really relies on diesel generator energy. It's probably about, I think, 25-30% renewables today. And as you can see with this environment, solar is a perfect natural resource to be able to utilise to drive into a higher level of new renewables.
Does solar come with battery storage?
Yes, it is. Yeah, so it'll be solar with battery. Yep.
You mentioned earlier it was the most pressing infrastructure need Niue is facing. Is that a message to other countries wanting to invest in Niue, that the relationship it has with New Zealand shows New Zealand knows how to help the best?
Well, look, I think we have been, without doubt, over the last 50 years, and certainly in recent times, and as we've seen with the investment at the airport and also the investment in renewable electricity, we are the dominant development partner. Of course, there will be others as well, and that's fantastic too. What we've talked about, the Premier and I, this morning was actually a bit like back at home. How do we get an infrastructure pipeline essentially established over the next 15 to 20 years, and actually so we know actually what is the next priority that we need to be focused on, rather than just lurching from one project to another. And that's the same message I've had. I was sharing my observations of infrastructure development in New Zealand, which has been that we've done on a rather ad hoc basis, and we really want to see a 30-year pipeline in New Zealand of infrastructure projects, so we know what we're rolling into, and then how we get those projects financed and completed.
And Niue's most recent budget shows it's running quite a large deficit. Was there any discussion on helping pay that off, or who is paying that off?
Well, what we agreed was that we would increase our what's essentially operating allowance from, I think, $12.8 million up to $15 million. But obviously there's been big injections, as you've seen, through the period of COVID as well. And we'll continue to make sure we've got support. But again, the Premier is very well aware that we, as you're seeing back at home, we expect every dollar to be well spent. It's important that it is, and we're getting a return for that. And I think they're doing a great job with their public service, trying to build more public finance capability and capacity as well.
Did Niue ask for more?
I'm sure they would love more, yeah, but the upshot is that that's what we're able to put on the table, and most importantly, it's also the support that we're able to give on critical pieces of infrastructure, and so that's the work that we'll continue to work on together.
On the
I can't answer the details of that, but again, what's exciting for me is when I clarify when does this thing get started. Bids go to contractors, or contractors give bids in July. Construction starts early in the new year, and then we hope to have a commission by the end of the year.
Just on some domestic issues,
Sure.
What do you make of the allegations surrounding Te Pāti Māori at the moment?
Oh, look, they're ultimately issues for Te Pāti Māori. They're pretty concerning allegations and serious allegations. It's right that there's an investigation underway, as I understand it, and obviously, it'd be inappropriate for me to comment while that investigation's underway.
Do you think the party should stand down the MP while this investigation's underway?
Yeah, look, again, I'm not getting into that. That's an issue for Te Pāti Māori, John Tamahere and their co-leaders, and to work through. All I just say to you is I think they're pretty serious allegations. They're warranted to be investigated appropriately and promptly. That investigation's underway. I've got nothing further to say.
Has National laid any complaints itself?
Again, not that I'm aware of. Again, just with travelling, I'm not sure where we are with that. But the key thing is that's an issue for Te Pāti Māori and the authorities to work through.
Well, do you think there should be a wider inquiry that includes government departments? Because the allegation includes that MSD and Stats NZ knew about it but did nothing about it.
Yeah, look, I mean, again, I don't want to go into the details of it because while I've been travelling, I'm not travelling in the nth degree of detail on it. I just say to you again, that is ultimately an issue for the party and the authorities, and it's good that there's an investigation underway. They're serious allegations and they deserve to be properly investigated. It's important that they are.
On the energy project,
yeah.
I mean, you talked about how it was good for about environmental protection and all that move or progression there, but also it was a cost of living measure. I mean, that we're not going to see that project completed until the end of next year. People who you will have spoken to here will have been telling you about the cost pressures that they're facing now, particularly with the price of diesel. So why have you not opted for something that's more immediate that can address that?
Well, again, what we're looking for is good long-term infrastructure investment. And if you think about the experience of doing a quality repaving of the airport runway, for example, it's going to last 25 to 30 years. That's a very good outcome. And it's the same thing here. We need a good long-term solution. So, look, I appreciate, as we see at home in New Zealand as well, there's massive cost pressures. There's huge impact of inflation being felt everywhere. But the reality is, we're moving as quickly as we possibly can. I say by the time we've done an announcement today, by the time contractors start getting their heads around it in July, and by the time we start construction, in early New Year, I think we're moving at quite a lot of pace.
Is there nothing more immediate that New Zealand can do to ease the price of diesel, for example, and other cost pressures?
Look, there isn't really. I mean, it's a global commodity. It's a global price. It's a very expensive. You're right. It can be up to 3 times as expensive as a renewable option, I suspect. It'll fluctuate as it goes around. But the key thing is to get Niue onto a long-term footing that gives it energy security, energy resilience, and obviously does it in a cleaner, greener way, and also at a lower cost.
Is there a reason New Zealand hasn't invested in a Niue port?
Sorry?
A Niue port, having to use a wharf effectively in barges. Is there a reason New Zealand isn't funding that?
No. Again, where Niue is at on the wharf is that they want to do some feasibility work to sort of see what their needs could be. You're quite right to identify the wharf as a critical piece of infrastructure. That and the runway are the 2 ways in which Niue stays connected to the world. The wharf itself was built back in the 1930s, and again, when bad weather comes, it's difficult to get boats in and out of here. And of course, the boat arrives here every month, and I think 3 of the last 3 times this year, the boats haven't been able to get in, partly because of weather. But also, so I spoke to the Premier about that. We actually went down and had a look at the port, and there's a bit of work and feasibility work that's needed first and foremost to scope that project as to what sort of the parameters of it would be and how it could come together before and we'll certainly pick that up in a conversation down the road.
So that's the next cab off the rank, pretty much.
Well, it's one that we want to see. It's a critical piece of infrastructure. Again, what I've asked and suggested to the Premier is that that we build an infrastructure pipeline that actually prioritises infrastructure based off what's the critical piece of infrastructure that has the most impact for the most amount of people in the fastest amount of time. And so but I imagine the wharf is right up there. Again, the key thing is they need a feasibility study before we can move forward.
In terms of tomorrow, looking ahead to Fiji, what is it that you're looking to achieve there? What would success look like on this trip? Yeah, look, I've spoken to the Prime Minister since I've become Prime Minister. It's really a chance for us to build relationship and rapport. But again, Fiji is New Zealand's 24th largest trading economy. We've got about $1.4 billion worth of trade in Fiji, and actually the pathway for us, both our countries, is to actually expand the economic opportunity that exists between the 2 countries. And so a lot of our conversation, I imagine, will be around that, and also around security and economic interest in the region. I'll be very interested in his perspective and views around a number of different regional issues as well. Yeah, just back home, there was Shortland Street actor Will Alexander who went on a hunger strike against your stance on the what's going on in the Middle East with Palestine. He's ended that today. Have you got any thoughts about that at all? Have you been?
Oh, look, I mean, good for ending it. There was no real need to do it in the first place, was my perspective. I mean, I'm very proud of the stance and position that we've had in Israel-Gaza. I mean, we've called for months and months for a ceasefire. We're asked for the release of the hostages from Hamas. We've called Israel not to go into Rafah. We've actually called Israel to be compliant with international law, to make sure that actually they can open up humanitarian aid and assistance. We've put another $17 million into aid across a number of different agencies there. And again, our real desire, while there is an offer on the table now, is for both those parties to seriously step up to the plate and progress and negotiate and have dialogue and actually getting a ceasefire in place. And then most importantly, moving on and actually creating a permanent solution, which has to be a two-state solution. And so, that's why, we exhort both parties. Hamas has to release hostages. Israel needs to get to the table, and they both need to negotiate a peace, because, this conflict, as we've all been saying, has got catastrophic implications on citizens across Palestine. And, at this point, we need both those parties at the table negotiating cessation of hostilities.
On your meeting today with the Premier, did you pass on any kind of encouragement or expectation with respect to Niue's future engagement with China, any contracts or any, work that they would enter into with China or other global powers at all?
Look, I mean, as I said yesterday, there's no doubt about it, the Pacific region has become an area of geostrategic competition. Yes, there's China in the region, but actually China has been in the region as a development partner and, for many of the Pacific Island nations for many, many years, and obviously is a key economic partner for us in New Zealand as well. But also there is the US, there is the French, there's the Indians, there's the UK, there's a number of other, Japan, there's a number of other major powers that are actually coming into the region as well. What's important to us is that we want Pacific solutions to Pacific challenges, and that requires those major actors to actually come through the lens of the Pacific Island Forum, which is, we fundamentally believe in PIF's centrality in the same way we believe in ASEAN as the central vehicle for ASEAN nations as well. And from our own experience dealing with the China relationship, I share that perspective, which is it's up for each Pacific Island nation to act in its own national interests. And so, as you know, in New Zealand, we cooperate with China, and we have a long-standing relationship built around trade and built around climate, built around people-to-people connections. We will have differences of opinion. We'll have differences of opinion as we do with all our relationships, and where we have those, we express those consistently.
Given Niue as a realm country, though, did you say or pass on any thoughts to the Premier that if they need help with development, they should come to New Zealand first?
Well, I think that is the default position in the view of the Premier as well, which is that we have been the consistent infrastructure provider and partner and close friend and partner for the last 50 years. And what I was wanting to reassure him was that we're going to be a very trusted partner for the next 50 years too. And so that's partly when you see our investments in infrastructure here, that's why we're serious about it. We have been serious about it for decades, and we're going to continue to be so. Last one, guys.
People we spoke to today were saying that, look, they don't really care where the investment comes as long as, say, the roads get resealed or the development happens, right? So what's your level of comfortability with the fact that country, and the Premier did indicate today that New Zealand can't do it all. They need to look elsewhere.
Yeah. Well,
what's your level of comfortability with that?
Look, as I said, there'll be many other development partners as well. New Zealand is the dominant, development partner, as the Premier alluded to as well. You've seen as you just drive around here, there's a health facility and clinic at the high school that's provided, being funded by the Japanese. You would have seen some electrical projects that have been done by the European Union and others as well. So, the waste management plant, funded through the Australian investment. So, there's a number of development partners that are working and partnering with Niue, and that's perfectly reasonable. And all we're asking for is when those major actors, world actors, come into the Pacific, that they actually respect the centrality of PIF. And also that we are there as the dominant partner, and and we're happy to engage on any of these topics. And that's why I wanted to see an infrastructure pipeline, so we've got a good sense of what the next projects we can work and partner on are.
The Prime
Minister.
Sorry?
Are you going to contact Indian Prime Minister?
Oh, look, I will when the results are made official. At the moment, I'm like you, reading the media, and I know it seems like it's close, but there's been no official resolution at this point in time. So my job is to work with whoever the Indian people select as their leader. I'm looking forward to doing and leading a big delegation there at the back half of the year. As I've said before, the relationship between New Zealand and India is a huge opportunity for our two countries, and I'm very excited about the possibilities of that. We've already had Winston Peters and Todd McClay visit India already, and in preparation for me coming in the back half of the year.
Right. Prime Minister quite interested in a passport-free travel experience.
Yeah, I saw your question on that. Yeah.
Are you ruling that out?
Look, that's not something we discussed, to be honest, and it's also, as you know, Niueans are full citizens of New Zealand and have New Zealand passports and New Zealand currency as well. So, our real focus is actually on the more strategic issues of how do we actually get investment into this place, how do we actually set it up so it's got a really productive and a more prosperous future.
Prime Minister,
Cool. Yes.
Winston Peters recently spoke to Australia Immigration Minister. What exactly did he discuss?
Look, I won't go into that. That's a conversation you should direct towards him.
Are you happy with the communication that's been happening between you and Australia?
Yeah, I think between my messages and conversation with Prime Minister Albanese and our Foreign Minister Winston Peters' conversation with the Immigration Minister in Australia, we're registering very strongly our message, which is that we have concerns. We would hate to see people who actually are deported to New Zealand with very little connection to the country, and we've been reassured that the common sense approach will apply. And of course, we'll have to continue to monitor it and see how that develops.
We've got to go, guys. We've got to go. Did Australia provide any communication to New Zealand before reversing that change?
Look, we got a little bit of a heads up, literally, around the same time it came into the media environment. But the bigger issue is, again, as I've said, Australia is a sovereign state. It's entitled to make its own laws and rules as it sees fit. But we regret those decisions, and I've expressed my point of view to Prime Minister Albanese. I've been reassured there'll be a common sense approach will continue to apply, and we'll work our way through that as we see a new ministerial direction emerge.
Would you have appreciated a longer lead-in time?
Oh, look, the key thing is we've got a good relationship, and so we can pick up the phone to each other and we talk regularly. And so from my point of view, I wasn't particularly hung up on that. I was more interested in actually just making sure we registered our concerns, and likewise it was great to get his reassurance that the common sense approach would apply. Cool. Okay, thanks team. All right, see you guys. Hey, go down to the beach though, team. You'll love it.